Hi, it's Adam here, just explaining a little bit about what to expect from your Vedic astrology reading. Many of you may have had a Jyotish consultation. You may have had a consultation with me personally or with somebody else, but many of you also will be familiar with Western astrology, may have studied it, may have had a reading, may have, maybe very knowledgeable about it, may have studied it in great depth, and may be curious as to why you would want to have a Vedic astrology take on the same thing. Is Vedic astrology just a different outlook on the same basic information? Does it just basically tell you the same things about yourself as Western astrology does, but from a different perspective, using different terminology and different techniques? Or does it actually add something new? Does it tell you something about yourself which perhaps you didn't already know, or which maybe you do know but weren't aware of through the lens of astrology? Because astrology will do this, even if it is telling you what perhaps you already know or suspect about yourself at some deep level. There is something very affirming about having it objectively endorsed or verified and told about your talents and challenges from an objective point of view. There's something quite empowering about this, and people find this it creates quite a lot of optimism and quite a lot of personal strength to be told about your personality, about your challenges and talents and so on from an outside point of view. So does Vedic astrology give you anything extra? I'd have to say that it does. In addition to planetary transits, which are the cycles or the orbits of the planets and the crucial relationships that they make in the course of their cycles, this is the stock in trade of Western astrology, and it has a very detailed and deep tradition of knowledge in relation to transits. Vedic astrology does transits too. It does transits from the ascendant, which is the pivot around which your chart revolves, but also looks at transits in relation to the natal moon, which gives you an emotional take on what the planetary activity is telling you, and the sun, which is a more ego-centered, also more spiritual point of view on where and how the planets are affecting you at any given time. So it has a very detailed, systematic picture of planetary transits. But where it really scores is in relation to the planetary periods, the dasha system. Now there are many dasha systems, but the most widely used is the Vimshottri dashas, the planetary periods of unequal length which relate to the 7 classical planets plus the 2 nodes. So there are 9 periods in all of unequal length, and having these working in addition to planetary transits means that you get a much fuller picture of where you are in life at any given time, because you would look at the transits in relation or in the context of which planetary period you will be in. So in addition to the sporadic and intermittent planetary activities as they go in their cycles and make these crucial relationships with themselves and with the other planets, you see this in the context of a planetary period that you may be in. You may be in a Saturn period or a Venus period or a Ketu period. And so it explains why your planetary transits are never going to be exactly the same each time. So you might look at a Mars return or more particularly a Jupiter or a Saturn return, or a transit across your ascendant, or a transit of those planets to the sun, for example, and 12 years apart, they will never be the same each time, because you will always be in a different dasha. And knowing the dasha that you're in, knowing the planetary period you're in, explains an awful lot about life, why it is that your life just goes through cycles, the ups and downs, the arc of your life, the crucial turning points. It becomes very easy to see these points, and very often when people see a map of their dashas throughout their life, even though they don't necessarily have a detailed understanding of the planetary symbolism, just looking at the dates, it usually puts a light bulb on. People see, I understand this. This is when I changed. This is when a certain crucial event happened in my life. the atmosphere of my life changed at a certain point, and just seeing the date set out is very often enough to give a certain perspective on it. So when you have it explained in detail and in depth by an astrologer, this gives you a great deal of insight into what's happening in your life at any given time.